Hello, and welcome to Tech Connects, Dice's podcast where we dig into topics on tech hiring, recruiting, and careers that matter to you. I'm your host, Nick Kolakowski, and I'm talking to great guests every month about the current state of the tech careers world, including the tech job market, the hottest tech skills, what companies are doing to attract and retain tech pros in a historically tight market, and much more. Our next guest is Adam Seligman, who's VP of Developer Experience at Amazon Web Services, or as probably most of you know it, AWS. In that role, he's been relentlessly focused on making software more accessible to everyone, no matter what their level of development experience. I wanted to chat with him for a couple of reasons. First, AWS is launching a portfolio of AI-powered helpers and tools for developers, which could fundamentally change how thousands of people build the software of tomorrow. Second, there's a whole new generation of tech professionals who are scoring their first roles as interns, junior developers, and more. Meanwhile, the tech industry is changing rapidly thanks to the evolution of AI and other technologies. Adam has some interesting insight into how these new techies can use AI to accelerate the problem solving and, ultimately, their early careers. So with that, let's jump in. So thank you for being on. You are as VP of Developer Experience at AWS, obviously you're in the middle of a kind of a very exciting and complex environment. I mean, it seems that every time I look at AWS, the number of features for developers and tool sets and everything else is expanding exponentially. So I imagine it's, kind of never really a dull moment. And then AI is just making things even more interesting, for want of a better term. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a really dynamic place to work. It's incredibly exciting every day and invigorating to see what our customers do with AWS. And like more than 100,000 of them of all sizes are like doing ML with us. So all this buzz you hear on ML is happening with AWS customers and Bedrock and other technologies right now. So super exciting time.
Yeah. One of the things that was interesting before we got on the line here, was this idea that you were throwing out there about how when you talk to most folks about generative AI and LLMs and machine learning and so on, there's quite a bit of focus on sort of the upper echelon of talent, like the super highly specialized PhDs who are busy every day with training and perfecting LLMs and then sort of figuring out how to integrate that into workflows and products and all the rest of that good stuff. But what you were suggesting was that more junior people on a generative AI team, interns, people who may have taken a few AI classes and so on, are just as valuable for these teams in terms of training and perfecting LLMs. And that was fascinating to me. And I just wanted to kind of dig into that a little bit, like what you meant by that.
I think generative AI capabilities are going to flip a bunch of assumptions about being a software developer, working as a software developer, or even becoming a software developer. It's going to flip those assumptions on their head. You now, as an aspiring developer, can discover new technologies, ask for a little help, see an example, get something explained to you in a way that makes the most sense to you, try it instantly, like you never could before. And
yes,
those kind of capabilities in the fingertips of anyone that wants to play with the cloud or play with technology is extraordinary.
It's really fascinating to me because before the whole LLM AI revolution kind of really truly got underway, there was still a push for like no and low code tools, and you saw a lot of everyone from startups to major enterprise companies, trying to democratize, I guess for want of a better word, the ability of people to sit down and, they might have had some coding knowledge, but not even if they didn't have an extensive amount, they could still produce even kind of a simple app. But it seems that this AI revolution is going to accelerate that even further. But when I talk to different people, it seems like there's different timelines about it. You talk to some people and they say like, oh, sort of knowledge of the fundamentals of coding is still going to be absolutely essential. And, an era where you can just sort of issue a prompt and get a piece of complete awesome software back is a long way, if ever, from coming to us. But then you talk to other people who are more optimistic, where they're talking about, like developers are going to be able to spin up software instantly within a couple of years. I'm just wondering where you fall in that, like, because you're in a privileged position to see kind of where things are evolving. So I'm very curious about your take on that.
Well, we're all learning every day.
That's true.
But with our customers and our community, we see generative AI innovation happening everywhere. We see our customers are the most skilled data scientists and ML engineers building and training custom models with SageMaker on their own corporate data. We see skilled developers building complex systems using Bedrock and applying a generative AI to build things like agents and intelligent automation in the back ends. We see developers of every skill level, including early career interns, skilling up incredibly fast because they have generative AI tools like our Q developer product. And there are others in the market also. Lots of choice because everybody gets new capabilities that help them take where they are and just push the envelope forward.
Yeah, no, the evolution of it's been really astoundingly rapid. It seems that every time I log into any sort of generative AI tool and try it out, I mean, there's all these like new features that have been added and so on. And it's astounding.
You had a thing you mentioned there, maybe we could talk about, which was, are we at a moment where generative AI will just write giant output of code and replace coding for you? Mm-hmm. And I don't think that's exactly the right way to think about it. The thing we're seeing with our customers and our developer community is everybody can do more really fast all at once right now. They can ask for approaches. They can get help migrating old Java code, like with our Q developer transformation feature, code transformation feature. They can ask for serverless architecture, how to build an event-driven pattern to solve a certain kind of problem. And wherever they are in their journey and the kind of problem they're solving, they can get help right away. And so to have that kind of help, again, available for you right now, just in time, is extraordinary in how it will enable humans to do more.
Mm-hmm. And then the tools you're working with, there's a QA element baked into it as well, right? So when you're asking for, say, a code snippet or something, just to be able to sort of verify that what you're getting back is I'm trying to think of the right word here, relatively bug-free, unproblematic. I'm not sure what the right.
Well, like, no software is ever done, right? Like, so we all know that we're on this journey to like build things, then add more features and fix problems and learn how to operate at scale and run them in more places and add new features. So no software is ever done. So you have to sort of bring that mentality. We believe the best way to equip developers is not just with one modality like inline code completion or chat, but really help them across the entire software development lifecycle. It might be learning, exploring solution architecture, planning an approach to build an application, scaffolding code for you, like inline, possibly writing tests for you, suggesting improvements in your code, which might be like a chat modality, migrating code, like I mentioned, like from Java 8 to Java 17. We help with our Q product helps with that. Debugging operational issues. So you might have some challenge in operating, get an error message you're not familiar with. Help me understand that. So it might be a chat modality, but all the way in the operations side, not in the sort of core software development side. So at Amazon, we're trying to help customers and our developers with every facet of the entire software development lifecycle. And it looks like it's going to create an extraordinary up-leveling of every developer and their capabilities.
I mean, certainly when you think about, companies bringing on junior developers, obviously they go through the whole interviewing process where they're assessed. But even if even if they have tons of skills already and like some experience building whatever, whenever you talk to hiring managers and project managers and so on, there's always a concern about, will people be able to kind of upgrade their skills rapidly? Will they be able to kind of introduce themselves into the workflow that's currently in process and then gear up and kind of be active, robust contributors? And it seems like AI would really help with that. It seems that that's something where you'd be able to kind of catch up on the flow more quickly than before. And that certainly strikes me as a really awesome potential benefit. I guess one question for people who are working on, let's say you're part of a developer team where you're tasked with something like building models or training models or something like that. I mean, a lot of people who are coming onto these teams, especially interns and more junior developers, might be really great prompt engineers. They might be really awesome at sort of querying whatever they need in order to get, the code snippet or whatever back. But in terms of making that leap to kind of the architecture or the training side of it, what skills do they need to have to like kind of fully operate quickly on AI teams, do you think?
I think it's easy for those of us that have been in this field a while to have a preconceived notion that you have less capabilities all over when you're earlier in your career. Yeah. And as you go, you get more capabilities and get super deep in some areas. And what I think is fascinating is with the power of the cloud and generative AI, you can ramp to be incredibly valuable at something, incredibly deep at something, without necessarily having all those years of horizontal breadth. And I give you an example, which is SageMaker allows you to train or fine-tune your own models incredibly easily. And you don't have to know assembly language, and you don't have to know C, like pretty extraordinary what you can do. So if you're an enterprise company or a big customer, your interns may be fine training your foundation models in Bedrock or SageMaker. Your interns may not just be doing prompt engineering, but doing the quality engineering that ensures these generative AI systems are really high quality. So lots of preconceived notions are changing in this world of generative AI. And I am an optimist and find it incredibly exciting that early career people can now suddenly have superpowers and provide a way outsized impact of benefit to their company by building great software and building great solutions and solving problems, faster and with more impact than they ever could in their career before.
It seems, you're absolutely right, because it seems that, and I hadn't really thought about it until you mentioned it, but it seems almost as if these younger tech pros are almost blank slates, they're coming in at a perfect time because we're at this pivot. So they'd have sort of nothing to unlearn, and they're moving into, because it's such a massive paradigm shift, it's almost anyone's game in a certain way. I hadn't thought about it like that.
It's pretty interesting. I was working with one of our principal engineers who was using some forthcoming Q developer features. Like we have chat now, and we're always making these things better. And this principal engineer was explaining to me how he prompted it differently for different kinds of tasks. And he'd kind of broken it down of what was a task a junior engineer a prompt a junior engineer might give it, and then how might a senior engineer really enrich the prompt to do things like, what are some performance trade-offs with this implementation? Show me a refactoring option that uses X technology. The prompt reflected this engineer's many years of deep technical experience. We can teach interns how to use those prompts and accelerate their learning. So again, it's an incredible time to start your career in software development, to enter the field, to bridge the field from another field, because you have the opportunity to learn and adapt and scale and produce impact so quickly right now.
Yeah, no, it's really amazing. One thing that I've had a couple of conversations with developers and engineers over the last couple of weeks, and one thing that sort of stood out to me, and I'm really interested for your take on this, because obviously, as developing this developer experience, you have this sort of holistic view into a lot of different industries that these developers work in. But it seems that in tech, obviously, a lot of companies have worked very hard on integrating generative AI into their workflows and having their teams adopt these tools. But in other verticals, whether it's finance, healthcare, and so on, you see some companies sort of, the managers and so on, they know what AI is, obviously, because it's all over the news and so on, and their resident tech pros, their developers and so on, also know what it is, but there haven't been sort of a movement towards integrating AI as fully into everything they're doing. And that's just apocryphal. This is based on me having conversations with 4 or 5 people. And so I'm really intensely curious whether what I'm hearing holds with what you're seeing out there. Is it a sort of thing where a lot of these AI benefits are mainly being done within tech and software companies, not so much in the rest of the industry? Is it more you're seeing it sort of more widespread throughout the economy? I'm just curious what your take is on that.
Yeah. This technology came from computer scientists and data scientists and our researchers. Like we've been doing AI for a decade plus with Alexa. So like there's a community of scientists who've been working on this for quite some time. what's kind of amazing is the innovation that happens when you get it in the hands of regular people that just have a problem they want to solve, and they're unlocking their creativity is just pretty extraordinary. We released something called Party Rock at partyrock.aws, which is generative AI playground for anyone to play with, and does not require computer science and does not require like being an expert in AWS. And I'll just tell you, Nick, we've seen some extraordinarily interesting and valuable and clever and fun and useful apps, Party Rock apps that have been built, and they range from like recruiters building tools to help them like understand resumes and figure out what questions to ask the candidate to really get to know the candidate better. So not screening resumes, but just understanding the candidate. Like, oh, you've worked in distributed systems. What was a challenging incident or a customer issue you had that you had to debug, and how did you handle it? Right, really help the recruiter laser in. All the way to really fun stuff. We had a hackathon, I don't know, about a month ago, and the winner was a detective game.
Oh, wow.
And it was a generative AI, like murder mystery thing. It was so fun and so creative and really delightful and novel. And so when I just really believe, Nick, when you make this generative AI technology accessible to more people, they will do extraordinarily creative and useful things with it. And so we don't just want to build like the most robust, like training and inference infrastructure to support, the top AI companies in the world. We want to bring it out to every developer. We want to bring it out to every business person. That's very much and just human. It's very much in our goal.
Come to think of it, it does remind me a lot. I hadn't thought about that, but it does remind me a lot of Alexa, because I remember when Alexa was first rolling out. I remember sort of testing it by just, because lots of people were building lots of cool little things for it, and some weird things too, but it was all really interesting. You would just throw out these sort of, I guess, voice prompts or commands to it, and all of a sudden you get this thing back. It was really fascinating. Yeah.
Community did amazing things with that. People wrote story apps and games for their kids. And so again, it's easy to make the assumption that this generative AI thing is going to like help the biggest companies do the hardest problems or something. But we really believe generative AI is going to be transformative in many, many places. And we really trust our customers and users and developers to turn on and do extraordinary things with it. And it doesn't mean that the end output is always generative AI output. It might mean that it's a tool that helps them do their job or helps them achieve something or learn something.
Mm-hmm. It seems that I'm not really fully up on this trend. I mean, you are going to know a lot more about this than I do, but the trend of sort of shrinking LLMs so that they can run, on a smaller device like a phone, with kind of less energy expenditure and less intensive in terms of resource and everything. Is that going to change the game for developers, or is that something that's mostly kind of restricted to like the phone makers and so on in the world? Because again, like that's an area I know relatively little about, but I'm just hoping that you could sort of illuminate a little bit.
Well, we've been, you're spot on. There's a whole lot of models from a lot of places. Yeah. But we bet early on that it wouldn't be one model to rule them all. Just like there's not like one, I don't know, like infrastructure, like node to rule them all. Like our customers want all sorts of different kinds of CPUs for different applications and purposes and costs. And so we bet pretty early on with this Bedrock strategy that we'd offer model choice and allow customers to do lots of different models. And we'd have some, and we'd try to make ours the best in the world and the most performant everything in the world. But we also are happy to host partner ones, including open source models. So Bedrock offers Mistral and some of their really exciting models, the new Llama 3 models, including the small ones that are really impressive and really fast and really capable for their size. Command's Cohere model is coming soon. We just announced that this week. So Bedrock was an investment from us, a strategy from us to make sure we offered model choice and customers could pick the model that made sense for their application. And that might even include like trying different ones for their particular use case. And so we released this week a model evaluation service for Bedrock to help people actually pick the best model for their use case. Give us some input. We'll help you pick the best model. Specifically on small ones, I really believe that there are some user interaction patterns that fast can really help you. It provides sort of a different kind of user experience if it's really fast. So for example, in Q Developer, without going into all the details, the inline completion, like is it helps you, like you're typing and you write a comment, it'll like scaffold a whole function for you. That has to be really, really fast. Like a developer doesn't want to wait maybe for chat to come back for a few seconds. That's got to be like super fast. So we actually use different models in Q Developer for the code completion versus what we do for the chat, where like it thinks and comes back and might take a few seconds. So there's going to be a lot of models. People are going to pick different ones. It's always changing. So, your needs and what fits the bill might change over time. But I think that's a great assessment. And that's why we anchored on model choice with Bedrock.
I could almost see it, for consumer applications as well. Like, let's say you're developing an app for the phone, an AI app for a phone that's some sort of guidance or navigation, something where you want an answer returned extremely quickly because somebody's trying to get somewhere or find something like that. And then, but it doesn't need to.
Yeah. We released some really cool Amplify as our set of tools for front end web and mobile developers. So there's services from AWS called Amplify, and we released some really great guidance on how to use Amplify to wrap Bedrock to make it really easy to use Bedrock in mobile apps, including this async pattern that just pushes the results right to the mobile app or the web app. So we're seeing customers do mobile and front end, mobile apps and web front ends that use generative AI. And they often pick a high performance, low latency model, but they're really happy with those outcomes.
Do you see, in terms of the development, and obviously, I was looking at the Bedrock site and other AWS documentation and so on. It seems like you have a lot of really awesome documentation in terms of allowing people to integrate a lot of this stuff into their workflows. And, for those who are unfamiliar with it, kind of figuring out what exactly they're looking at. In terms of, are developers generally, do you find integrating this stuff quickly? In terms of the learning curve for all of this, you would think that very techie people would sort of attach themselves to it immediately, or is it taking, do more people need more time? I'm just wondering because,
I think what I've seen is that the complexities comes in surprising places, that the Bedrock SDK is really easy to use, and there are other APIs from other vendors and stuff. They're all pretty easy to use. But really figuring out how to build an agent and do RAG with your own data, and then come up with a prompting strategy and test prompts, have a quality infrastructure to measure your quality, do that model evaluation is a ton of work to ensure you're making the right selection of model. So it's different kind of work for developers, and I don't think it's hard. It's more that it's different, and that's why we've made some of the choices of what we've put in the Bedrock SDK. Like there's an agent kit in Bedrock, so if you want to call Lambda, we make that really, really easy to just put that in your Bedrock agent, as opposed to having you assemble it on your own. So you can put all your energy and calories into like building that great Gen AI application rather than wiring up the fiddly bits.
Yeah, no, I imagine, for everyone from interns all the way up, it just makes training that much easier when there's all the documentation, all the stuff is ready to go in terms of the components.
I think we have the best tech writers in the business that work on our docs. And so I really appreciate the team. And now they realize they're not just writing for our users, they're writing for LLMs and they're writing for Q. And so the things they write and the way they write it and the way our metadata works behind the scenes makes Q Developer help developers navigate through even more quickly.
Oh yeah, no, you can totally see it. It's funny because I've been using generative AI to summarize really long documents, and something that's clearly written from the human written, but clearly written from the outset, and like kind of really well done. The LLM has a really easy ability to like accurately summarize it, whereas things that are a mess, technical human writing is still a valuable skill. Obviously, which is really important.
And there's the similar lesson there that we're seeing with customers that want to build a great experience for their customers or their employees. And they have a bunch of corporate data, Nick. And that corporate data really, it might be policies, it might be customer, it might be procedures, it might be other communications they've done with their customers over time. It might be their documentation or the tech support for their products. That business data is incredibly valuable to their business and can be used to either ground, like using RAG, or fine tune the generative AI experiences they're building either for their employees or for their customers. And so we're seeing customers start with generic Gen AI models and then move into fine tuning, move into RAG and anchor in their own data and move into even custom models. And so that's why like having not just an API for Gen AI, but having Bedrock, having model choice, having fine tuning, having RAG, having SageMaker, having training infrastructure. We're seeing that continuum is good for our customers. Not every customer goes all the way, like with our discussion of like different skill levels and stuff, but to make sure we can take them as sophisticated as they want to go to build the best Gen AI experiences. We don't want them to get stuck where they've got an API, but then they can't really anchor it easily on their data. That'll make it really most relevant for their customers. So that continuum of our ML tools from the like Q developer through Bedrock all the way to SageMaker and the training infrastructure is we feel is a really good strategy.
It's also, somebody passed me this research paper yesterday I was talking about. I forget who the researchers were or who authored it, but with fine tuning, it seems it's also cost effective as well, with something like 0.00003 cents per 1,000 tokens or something like that. So you can see companies, trying to be cost effective by zeroing in on that as well, at least in that instance.
Yeah. Again, it's really simple. The biggest model, while technically impressive, may not be best for your use case. And again, we just want to give people choice, and then they can evaluate and pick the best model.
Yeah. Do you think, in terms of the future, I know that roadmaps are not something that you can talk about in detail, just because, proprietary information, all that, but I'm just wondering, where do you see, there's a lot of hype around AI right now. There's a lot of interest in the field. There's a lot of people trying to figure things out. Where do you think generative AI and LLMs and so on are going over the next bit? Do you think we're going to see kind of even faster ubiquitous adoption? Do you think things are going to level off and you're going to see kind of more incremental refinements? Where is this going, do you think?
I kind of want to start with what we opened with, which is like thinking about people early in their career and thinking about developers and how they work and what's possible. And I would just say we expect to deliver step function improvements in the capabilities that we offer them. So developers can take on bolder challenges, be totally fearless, and learn and tackle hard problems and be super successful. And we're just going to be relentless at pushing that bar forward and higher so that developers can just be fearless when they want to innovate.
Yeah, which is awesome. And obviously that yields, better everything, in terms of software, in terms of apps, in terms of everything else. And that's great. And that's it, folks. Here are some additional takeaways from our discussion with that. First, generative AI is being used by a wide range of people, from skilled data scientists all the way down to early career interns. Whether you're an experienced tech professional who wants to speed up their coding, or an intern still trying to figure out how to use the building blocks of technology, AI can make things a little easier by automating tasks and suggesting improvements. Second, if you're running a team or project, consider allowing your interns, junior developers, and other tech professionals just starting out to use AI. It could allow them to solve their challenges faster. Third, AI as a technology is definitely here to stay. It's helpful at this point to figure out how it will best integrate into your current workflow, whether that's designing solutions, writing code, debugging, or what have you. So we covered a lot of other topics during the episode, of course, so give it a re-listen if there was something you missed. And we'll see you next time. And remember, Dice is your best resource to find the tech talent you need to fill your open roles, and for tech pros, the best place to grow your tech career.